Okay, all right. I think let's get started. So, welcome everyone to today's webinar. I'm Deanne Fernandez, and I'm part of the product team at PayPal. I come from a humanities academic background, and I started my career as an academic editor at Cactus, which is our parent company. A few years in, I transitioned to tech and product because I was keen to work toward building AI products to and streamline the submission workflow. Joining me today is Avi Staiman. He's founder and CEO of Academic Language Experts. He's a founder, author, podcast host, thought leader, lecturer, and so much more. And when we were chatting to prep for this call, he said he was very happy to introduce himself, so I'll leave him to it. But before we get to that, I will just take you through a few instructions to make sure you get the best experience out of today's webinar. So we are on a platform called Meet, and if this is the first time you're joining, this is important for you. So you'll see a little chat icon on the right hand side of your video, and that's where all of the comments are coming in. So keep the comments coming in, drop in anything you have to say, anything you want to tell us on the chat. We expect for this to be an interactive experience. The PayPal team is also on the chat, so they will be interacting with you as well. Right below that, you'll see a question and answer window. So if you have any questions as Avi is demoing today, please drop those there. I recommend not using the chat window for questions because those may very easily get lost there. If you drop them into the Q&A window, the team is going to look at it and share responses. And you can also see if someone else has the same question that you have. To ensure you can see clearly and can articulate what is being demoed, I recommend that you watch it full screen. So you can refer to this icon that you see on your screen, click on it and watch the demo on full screen. And for the best audio experience, we recommend that you use headphones. A few questions you may have. Yes, we will send you a demo recording and relevant resources will be emailed to you after the session. You will also get a certificate of attendance that will be emailed to you. Now, today's webinar is focused on the outcome of submitting confidently. And as a student many, many years ago, I remember the nervousness that accompanies each submission. The work's done, you've gone over it a number of times, but you always wonder as the author of your work, what will pop up once your supervisor or once journal desk takes a look at it. And today's session will demonstrate how PayPal can help you review your own work before you submit and help you submit more confidently. So Avi will cover plagiarism, AI detection, grammar, and reference checks, and how these can be streamlined into one workflow using PayPal. He'll also walk you through how to interpret the results of the document health check and how to prioritize revisions effectively. He'll cover how best to use the chat PDF feature inside PayPal, especially during your literature review and manuscript development process. And finally, when using AI, how to use it responsibly and ensure you own the work that you're working on. If you're a Prime user, please log in to your PayPal account and you can review everything that Avi is demoing real time. We want you to try out what he's showing you and experience it as well. If you're a new user or a free user, please log into PayPal. If you're a new user, please create an account right away. Log into PayPal. The team, you'll see a link being dropped into the chat right about now. So we're giving you free Prime access to try out the product all day today and right up until tomorrow, end of day. So if you just use the link in chat, you will the activation code will be auto applied and you will have Prime access to try out everything that's being demoed. All right. Finally, we have a surprise for all attendees towards the end. So please hang back. With that, Avi, I will hand it over to you to get started with the demo.
Thank you so much, Dan. It is an absolute pleasure to be here with everyone today. There's nothing that brings me greater joy than simply looking through the names and places that everyone's coming from, literally from one side of the world to the other. And for all of you who have, country representation starting at the World Cup tomorrow, I wish everybody the best of luck with that. They're not, I guess, not all of our countries can make it to the finals, but I hope that everyone who is participating, it's a wonderful games, and it's this feels to me like kind of a representation of that. So it's great to be here with everybody. Okay, so first of all, just quickly about myself, to introduce myself. I asked Diane to introduce myself because I always get embarrassed when others do it for me. So I am the founder and CEO of a company called Academic Language Experts. We provide author services, mainly for academic publications, as well as for grants, competitive grants. We've been doing a lot of work recently with ERC and European grants. But over the last, I would say about, 3 years, ever since ChatGPT came onto the scene, I've been doing trainings on AI tools for research. It really started with just curiosity and trying to figure things out. I remember back in 2023, I would invite different tools to come and pitch their tools, and I would invite researchers to come and learn about those tools. And one of those tools was Paperpal, I was impressed already, kind of from that point of kind of the approach and how much it was tapped into how researchers actually work. So oftentimes people ask me, well, can I just get a subscription to ChatGPT or to Claude, etc.? And hopefully by the time we're done here today, you'll see that AI that is customized or is what I like to call goal-oriented, right? So we're trying to accomplish something specific is going to be much more effective for researchers than if you just use generic tools. Now, obviously, GPT and Claude can be very powerful in their own right, definitely not to be ignored. But you'll see that Paperpal, one of the things that I really like about it is the fact that it brings together so many different capabilities or so many different needs across the researcher workflow, that it really becomes a value add for researchers as they're going through. If anyone wants to stay in touch or has questions afterwards, I encourage you to connect on LinkedIn. I'm always happy to accept any requests that people have. I try to write at least once or twice a week on topics relating to AI and research. And sometimes it becomes really interesting conversations, debates, discussions between universities and researchers and product developers and builders and grant funders. And it's really interesting to kind of see that public square of discussion and information as we go along. Okay. If I were to kind of ask everybody here on the chat, if I were to ask you, what would you say is kind of the biggest risk of using AI tools? What would you say in one word? What would you say the biggest risk of using AI tools are? Everyone, I'll give everyone a minute here to use in the chat. Okay, so we've got plagiarism, time wasting, all right, credibility, all right, plagiarism, over-reliance on AI tools, information overload, hallucination. All right, not thinking anymore. Okay, so I want to pick up on Sabina's comment of not thinking anymore. There's a term that was recently coined, which I think is a really good term to use, and it's called cognitive surrender. Has anyone here, I don't know if anyone here has heard that term, but cognitive surrender is a description of kind of how we feel when we just give over the keys to AI and we let AI steer the driving wheel, right? And we let AI make the decisions and determinations for us. Cognitive offloading, I've seen that as well. But this idea of cognitive surrender means that we are letting the AI think in our place. And I think that's where the real risk and danger becomes. And so then the question becomes, what are the use cases that AI is a value add and is not coming at the expense of my own thinking, my own development? By the way, this is true for every researcher, but especially true for early career researchers, right? How do we make sure that we're using AI in ways that are improving our work, making it better, but not actually coming at the expense of our own brains, right? And that's actually sounds like an easy challenge to tackle, but it's actually quite not an easy challenge to tackle. So one of the things that I really appreciate are tools that are built in order to help researchers do the things that aren't value adds, that don't make them think, that are take up a lot of time, right? And are important, but are not necessarily things where the researcher is able to grow, develop, use their brains, think constructively, etc. So that is why I get especially excited, and I'll go ahead and share my screen here. I get especially excited about the Paperpal tool because in my mind, Paperpal brings together a lot of the kind of functionalities and features which are critical to academic success, critical to publishing papers, but don't replace the critical thinking components and the kind of what makes our job what we love to do. And what I want to focus on today, because there's so much to go through with Paperpal, I think if we tried to go over all the features, we'd be here for about 3 hours. So you'll forgive me. We're going to focus specifically on a few new tools. So even those of you who have used Paperpal before, I think you'll find that you're going to be learning new things here today, specifically that have to do with the document health check. So what do I mean by document health check? It means that every single one of us needs to do a bunch of checks right before we hit that submit button, right before we're ready to actually submit our article. There are a bunch of things we need to do in order to make sure that the article is accepted and or is considered even. Technical checks, you could call them, but really critical ones. Now, let me just explain for a minute. How many of you, and you can raise your hand if this has happened to you, how many of you have had a case where you have submitted an article, okay, a research article for consideration in a journal, and you then you got comment before you even got to the review stage or the editing stage, you got technical corrections that you needed to change that took you a lot of time. So just a quick raise of hand. You can use the smiley face or you can use the raise hand tool if that's happened to you. Okay, so you've submitted an article to a journal that you wanted to publish in, and they've come back to you with kind of technical revisions and checks. Okay, you've got a lot of thumbs up here. By the way, nothing to be embarrassed about. This happens to basically everyone that I know. Now, what if we could get to a situation, we get to a point where we could avoid those technical issues and it could go straight to actual peer review? I think we would all be really grateful for such a scenario and such a situation. So I'm going to try and show you how Paperpal can help you do exactly that. All right. So we're in the Paperpal interface. Of course, I'm assuming that you have signed up. If you have not yet, this is a great opportunity to do so. And you're going to go on the home screen and you should see a screen that looks like this. And it says, "Hi, Avi, what would you like to do? What would you like to work on today?" Obviously, your name will appear here. You see here, there's a lot of different features. We are going to look for today on checks. Okay, we're going to be looking at checks. And there's 4 different kinds of checks that we're going to be doing as part of this training. And one of the things that I will say that I particularly appreciate and enjoy is that I don't need to kind of do 4 different activities in 4 different parts of the website. It's all here in one click or one upload, and click, and I've got all my capabilities in one place. That's a really big deal because I think one of the frustrations, one of the challenges with a lot of AI tools is the fact that it's I need to use this tool for this and this tool for that and a third tool for something else. Paperpal is bringing all of those tools into one place that's easy to use. So let me show you how it works. I'm going to go ahead and upload an article that is in draft form. You should see here that it says it was going to take about 2 minutes in order for this to load, but it's actually loading immediately, so that's great. Always like tools that over-deliver. Under promise and over deliver. That's my favorite kinds of tools. By the way, we are doing this on the web app, but you can actually install this as an add-in to Microsoft Word. So if you say, "Oh, I can't learn another tool that's the last thing I need in my workflow," you don't need to. If you're used to working in Microsoft Word, not a problem whatsoever. You simply install the Word add-in, and then it works within your Word browser. Okay. So let's just go through quickly and see what kinds of checks the document health checker is doing. By the way, there are different, you'll see that there are different time. It takes a different amount of time for different checks. There's nothing wrong with that. That doesn't mean anything's broken, just the opposite. The tools that work well don't work immediately. Okay, I've actually noticed this across many different tools. The tools that take their time to do their checks, thoroughly and check all the databases and review them are the ones that are most successful. So let's go through and see the different kinds of checks that we're going to get. The first one here is going to be a grammar check. This is going to be really important, right? We want to make a good impression on the editors and the editorial team. Of course, I would imagine that most of you are not native English speakers. Obviously, AI has made it much easier and much better and simpler in order to go ahead and create, kind of high quality language. And yet, still, I find that even with AI tools, we still need to clean up the grammar and make sure that there's not any issues. So let's have a look at this first tool, the grammar checker, and we're going to go ahead and click on the edits. All right. And you'll see here that I get basically a long list, 92 corrections across 55 sentences of changes or suggestions that they make in order to improve the article. In this case, the article is called How Artificial Intelligence is Reshaping the Future of Learning. So let's have a look here. We see here that it will tell us why it went ahead and made that suggestion, right? Conventions, conciseness, verb form. So instead of saying the essay argues that AI's educational benefits are real but conditional, they depend, right, with a colon, it actually changes it to a comma, depending on critical purposeful design. If I like this change, if I agree with it, if I think that it is the correct change to make, I simply click accept, and it goes ahead and makes that change. Okay, if at any point there's a change that I don't want to make, let's say I don't want to change that underpins to underpinning, I can go ahead and reject it, and then it will keep what I originally had. So this is a really great way, just as a starting point, to go through my article, make sure I don't have any language or grammar issues before I go ahead and submit it to the journal. Now, some people don't notice this. I want to point out, you can actually go not only for grammar, but you can actually go to this tab here. It's consistency. Oh, and it seems like this is a really well-written article. So consistency will look for issues like maybe, once you used English spelling, British spelling, and then you used American spelling, or you simply, weren't consistent in terms of the way that you, expressed a certain term or a certain abbreviation. So you can go ahead and run the consistency checker here. In this case, there aren't any consistency issues, but it's definitely worth running that as well, just to make sure that you haven't missed anything. All right. Now, what I am not going to go through with you today, but I highly, highly, highly recommend that you go through, because there are some really powerful tools, is edit is only one of the writing tools that Paperpal helps you with. There are tools to help you rewrite your paper, so you can paraphrase, improve fluency, make it more academic. Trim, this is a really great tool, right? I can make things shorter if my article is too long. All right, I can help actually write things from scratch if I hit a writer's block. I can cite articles that I'm interested in. I can translate from one language to another. I'm running through this very quickly because this is not the topic of our training today, but these are going to be really, really helpful tools. They're much more sophisticated than just please edit this, right? Sometimes our editing needs to make things clearer. Sometimes it needs to make it more academic. Sometimes it needs to make it simpler or shorter, right? Each editing kind of use case requires its own functionality. It's one of the things that AI does quite well. Okay, so let's so keep that in mind when you're going through, is that there are other features here within Paperpal that I'm not going to be able to show you today, but that are really worth checking out. All right, so let's go back to our document health check. We looked at the first health check, and again, that was the grammar check. And here, Paperpal is recommending that we come to the training today. So that's great, because you're all here. So thank you for taking the time. But I'm going to X this out because I don't think any of you need encouragement to come to the training. All right. The second tool that we're going to look at here is the plagiarism tool. Obviously, this is a really important functionality and feature. The last thing we need or we want is to submit our paper, and then the journal rejects it because it is plagiarized. Now, I will say in academia, it's a very strange, plagiarism plays a very strange role, or a very kind of interesting role. Oh, you know what? I need to share this tab. We're back to main document health check. Sorry about that. And the reason that plagiarism is strange is because oftentimes, or not just oftentimes, but within the discussion and within the introduction, we are expected, of course, to be bringing in literature and research from other places and quoting that literature. Now, the problem is if we overquote, so to speak, right? If we, kind of rely too much on the other texts, even if we're quoting them verbatim, even if we are kind of sourcing those texts, of course, we need to cite any of those texts. We can still end up with a situation where the plagiarism checkers will kind of flag something as being, plagiarized. And that's obviously an uncomfortable situation that we don't want to get into. We don't want us to have to start getting into discussions with the editor. Well, why would you, have you plagiarized? And they're going to start asking research ethics questions. So we can do a quick check here with Paperpal to understand what might be some of the issues with plagiarism in our paper. So let's go ahead and I'm going to show you what that looks like. Here we go. All right, so this is my article, okay, as we discussed about how artificial intelligence is reshaping the future of learning. And what you'll see here is we've got the abstract, the introduction, as you'd expect, and each one of them, if there are any concerns of plagiarism, it will actually highlight those sections and it will show you kind of where it is, where it believes it's plagiarized from. So here, for example, we've got the integration of artificial intelligence into formal and informal learning environments, the integration of artificial intelligence into economics and finance teaching. I wouldn't worry too much about this one. This one it is probably just a coincidence. Doesn't feel like there's anything that's actually substantive that's being borrowed here, but it's still, we need to be able to pass the plagiarism checks. So maybe we want to paraphrase that line to make sure that we don't run into any issues when we're submitting. If we keep on going down here, I want to find you an example of a phrase that I think we do need to be concerned about here. Here we go. Okay. Great. So if here we're talking about, this is a meta-analysis of 35 experimental studies published between 2022 and 2024 involving 4,193 participants, found a moderately positive overall effect of GPT on student learning outcomes. Here, this is clearly quoted directly from this source, which, again, it's not a problem in and of itself. It just means that we need to make sure that we are quoting the source and that we're citing it properly, right, in order to make sure that we're research ethics. We see here that it seems like there is a citation, so that I'm less concerned about. Where I get more concerned is the following example, okay? And here's an example of something that's flagged about students who use generative AI tools scored on average 6.17 points lower. That does feel like it is really lifted directly from this external website. We can actually open up this site. It looks like it's a PDF. So we can actually go ahead and click on it, and you'll see, you can find the actual article. Let me see if I can share. One second, quickly here. If I stop presenting and now I share PDF. All right, should be able to see this in a minute. Here is the article that in theory is the issue with plagiarism. So I can have a look and take a look at this article and make sure that I'm either citing it properly or that I'm paraphrasing so that I don't run into any issues. Okay, so not only does it flag it as potentially being plagiarized if we are concerned about that, but it's actually it's actually showing us the original article, so I can compare and make sure that it's okay. Again, most scenarios that I come across are not people that are acting improperly per se or trying to do something that's not ethical, but rather people who are just are trying to cite properly, but if if it ends up being too much, they need to kind of paraphrase in certain places. All right, I'm not going to go through all of the examples here. I will try and give you some time towards the end to go ahead and experiment and play around yourself. By the way, just note for yourself, if you are experimenting, obviously the longer the text here, this is a fairly short article of about 6 pages. If you're going to, go ahead and try to, I suggest starting it with smaller papers, even 15, 20 pages is okay. But if you start getting into the hundreds of pages, a full book or a long thesis, you might run out of credits or it might take longer. So just be aware of that as you go around. That being said, if you are working on your thesis, having a tool such as this and not, risking potentially, running into issues with your advisors or with the committee, I think is a very, very wise thing to do. Okay, so let's go back to our check. Okay, document health check. And what we've seen so far is we had a bunch of grammar recommendations and suggestions to look at that we went through. We looked at some plagiarism issues. All right. And now we are going to look at the AI detection tool. Now, I do want to say a word about AI detection tools before we start. Out of the different kinds of detection tools, AI detection tools are the ones that I am most skeptical about, meaning, or I wouldn't even say skeptical. I would say I always make sure to double check them. There is a tendency among AI detection tools to flag, for example, non-native English writing as AI generated when it shouldn't be. So there are some false positives here. What I like about the Paperpal tool, and we'll see this in a minute, is it doesn't just give you an overall score. It actually breaks down the article into kind of its different writing patterns. And it tries to highlight which parts of the article is it concerned are AI written. Again, if this is your own writing, then this shouldn't be a big deal because you probably know which parts are more AI and less AI. But if it shows up on the plagiarism detection tool with Paperpal, it may be an issue, right? If the publisher that you are publishing with is going to do checks on their own. There's a very simple solution, by the way. The very simple solution is simply to be transparent and forward with your declaration and say, listen, I am not a native speaker. I used AI in order to help me with my kind of writing or editing and so long as you are taking full responsibility over the content of the materials that you are submitting, then most publishers are perfectly okay with that. Obviously, it's a spectrum, right? So if 90% of the article is written with AI and you haven't made any changes, well, that's when the publishers start getting concerned. If it's your study and it's your results and you did all the literature review and you're simply using the AI detection, you're using AI in order to help you phrase so that it's clearer for the editors to know, there shouldn't be an issue with that. But again, you do need to be transparent and declare that when you're submitting your article to the journal of your choice. Okay, so let's have a look at this report that we're getting so that we can familiarize ourselves with it and be ready to go. Okay, so we've got here a different colors representing different types of writing. So first, let's start with the kind of pink, and that is 63% of the article. It says is AI written, right? It's showing strong AI writing patterns, and it may be something, right? I see some, of the M dashes here, which are somewhat of a tell sign, right? A lot of lists, so it's obviously picked up. This is AI, most likely AI writing. And I might want to make some changes or move things around a little bit or rephrase in my own voice so that I don't run into any issues. Or I simply am just transparent and tell kind of the publisher what I've done going in. The next thing here, which is really cool, is the human AI blend, right? So what does that mean? That means these sections, the ones that are in yellow or the ones that are in orange, which we should see a little bit later down here. Yeah, exactly. These seem to be text that maybe one of two things could be. It could be that AI wrote it originally, and then we went through as authors and we edited, we revised, and now it kind of is a mix between the two, or the opposite, or we actually wrote the original version, but then we had AI kind of rewrite it so that it would sound better, and then it also flags it as a human AI blend. Again, different journals take different approaches in terms of what their policies are around these tools or around the percentages they're willing to accept, or if they're checking whatsoever. So there's no kind of one rule that I would say, you need to get to 15% or 20%. I don't know that there's a industry standard, not yet. But I would say that if if it is flagging for high rates of AI, now if you know for sure it wasn't AI and it's a false positive, so that's a different story. But if you know yourself, yeah, I did use AI, maybe I want to bring down the number a little bit, that would be recommended. And of course, you've got here the green, and the green is the human written text, and that is going to be really, and obviously that's the stuff that we've written from scratch. Here's an example of the human written here. Yeah, and that gives me confidence that I don't need to worry about that particular paragraph. I wouldn't worry too much about if flagging things that have to do with the references. We would assume that the references, the references are not AI generated. So obviously that's very important, and we'll see shortly how we can check references as well, which is going to be really relevant. Another thing I want to show you here is you can actually download a report. So if you want to share this information or you want to go over it, not on the Paperpal website, but you just want to as a PDF, it will give you this report. You can share it with your colleagues, and you can work with it offline as well. The other thing you can do is if you have made the changes within the tool, you can go ahead and run another scan, or you can upload a new version, and it'll check it again, and you can see, right? Did I bring the AI writing down a little bit? Maybe the human written text has gone up, and I can feel more confident prior to submission. And I think, by the way, I think the title of this lecture today was about submitting with confidence, and I think that's what it comes down to. Is the last thing we want is to be submitting and then have long nights where we're sweating, whether or not the publisher is going to, or the journal is going to have an issue with kind of the way that we went about it. So by going through the document health check, we are assuring ourselves that we are acting according to best practices, and we are doing it in the best way possible. Okay. Now let's go to our last feature here, or at least the last feature in the document health check. All right, and that is the references tab. And this is, by the way, the brand new feature. So for those of you who are longtime Paperpal users, you may not have noticed this. And I also would argue that it is the most powerful or the most impressive of the four kind of sub tools that we are learning about today. And so let's have a look. With no further ado, let's have a look. All right. And you'll see here that in this particular article, there were 11 references. All right. So probably most of your articles have a lot more than 11 references, but we'll just look at these for the purposes of being concise and to the point. It has flagged 6 of the 11 references as being problematic. Okay. So that means I definitely need a careful look at my reference list before I go ahead and submit and hit the submit button, because the last thing I need, definitely do not want to run into a situation where there are hallucinated references. But even if the references are real, I've just made mistakes with the references. I need to be aware of that as well. So let's have a look at what it's flagging. So first of all, it gives me a summary up here at the top about what are the major issues that are in my reference list. So the most critical issues, it says, involved confirmed DOI mismatches for 3 references. Okay, so the DOI doesn't match the paper, or they couldn't find the DOI. Or actually it explains here where the cited journal names, author list, and DOI do not correspond to the papers the manuscripts appear to intend. Okay, alongside 1 confirmed retracted reference. So we'll take a look at that soon, because that's also going to be really important, right? We don't always know. So maybe an article has been retracted. We weren't aware of it, right? Maybe we put together our literature review already a year or 2 ago, and we weren't aware that it's been retracted since then. So this catches that, and that's really, really important, because you might think that there would be a good way, a good kind of function to get the retracted literature out of the scholarly literature, but that's actually not the case. Scholarly literature is riddled with retracted papers, including references to retracted papers. So this is your way to kind of fight against that, that problematic trend, and make sure that you're not citing anything that's been retracted because it's had issues, either research integrity or the results weren't accurate, etc. All right. So let's have a look. We now can go down and get an overview of the of all of the issues that it found in the reference list. So, for example, here, this is a article from 2023 that was published in Helion. it seems that this was retracted, this article, and therefore we might want to reconsider whether or not this is something that we want to be including in our reference list. I would recommend not. The next unrelated citation. So it says one of the references is clearly unrelated to the manuscript subject matter, right? Focusing specifically on AI and Chinese ideological and political education rather than the manuscript's theme. So here it's actually even, kind of being more proactive, and it's saying, are you sure you want to include this citation, right? It doesn't seem from its, at least from a kind of external standpoint, it does not seem like it's, super relevant, or it doesn't seem like it's, related to the article. And sometimes that happens. Sometimes we, accidentally have a reference that's stuck in there that maybe shouldn't be. And this gives us pause for thought to see, okay, maybe we want to reconsider whether or not we're going to include this reference. The next issue is journal quality. So it says here 4 references contain incorrect journal names. So 3 also have mismatched DOIs pointing to entirely different journals and authors, raising serious concerns about citation accuracy and source identification. We've got further issues that have to do with URL and DOI validity. Okay, and by the way, if I click on this, it will take me down to the specific articles. If I click on any particular one, it will take me down to it will give me a more detailed kind of report or explanation for why it flagged this reference or these group of references as problematic. Now, just in case you think it finds everything to be problematic, not everything here is an issue. For example, this is a really cool feature, proportion of old references, right? So how many of you had a situation where you have submitted an article and then the author say, or excuse me, the reviewers or the editors say, the article has potential, but, you haven't quoted enough up-to-date literature. So it'll actually go through the article and see when is the literature from. In this case, it seems like all the literature is new except for one article from back in 1972. And therefore it says, the percentage of old references seems to be in line with what's generally accepted. Again, this is not a hard ironclad rule. So for example, if you're in the field of history or philosophy, you may have more of these old references, and you may want to ignore, a flagging if there's an issue. But definitely in the sciences and medicine and computer science for sure, it's a good way to kind of find that. It looks for excessive self-citation, right? So if you're Johnson and Johnson's quoted, 10 times, 10 of the 40 references are Johnson, that could lead to some flags, that could lead to some issues, and you might want to look at that. In this case, that's not really an issue. Are there citations in the abstract, right? Which there really shouldn't be. So if there are, that'll flag that. Reference count, okay. Would we expect to have more references in an article like this, right? An article of about 2,800 words. It's only got 11 references. It doesn't necessarily mean it's a problem per se. That could be okay, right? Depending on where you're submitting to and how much literature there is out there. But it's good to have it flagged in case I have too many references, too little references, relative to what's generally accepted. A lot of the features here are as compared with what is generally kind of accepted in the in academic papers. So it's not necessarily, you have to decide for yourself, is it an issue in your particular context or not? And then finally, this is, I think, maybe my favorite one, is the citation and reference list cross-match. This is going to be really important, and this takes up a lot of time and is really annoying. So having this automated is fantastic. And that is, how do we compare if there are citations, in-text citations, and there's a bibliography at the end? It'll do the cross-referencing between them, the cross-matching. And if there's something missing, then in either one, right? So if there's something that appears in the bibliography but doesn't appear in the article, or something that appears in the article but doesn't appear in the bibliography, it'll flag that for you. And I'm sure that many of you will be quite appreciative of that feature after spending hours and hours just going through one at a time and trying to kind of pull those out. And I want to remind you that, the goal of tools like Paperpal and like the document health check is to free up your time, right? Think about how much time, excuse me, how much time these activities currently take you. And what would you be able to do if you had that time back, so to speak, or if you had more of an opportunity to actually go ahead and do some of this, and maybe it's more time to spend with students, advising them. Maybe it's more time writing your next article. Maybe it's more time collecting data. But it's always a question in my mind of where is, right, what are the value add kind of aspects to your job, to the research that really add tremendous value, and what are the things that take up a lot of time but are not necessarily, making us any smarter or even necessarily helping the author that much, or there are things that can be done in an automated fashion. I'm a big fan of doing it in that way. As I mentioned before, kind of up here, this overview is kind of short explanations of each issue. If you want to kind of do a bit more of a deep dive and a detailed analysis, this will explain in further detail what is the issue here. Okay. So it says this particular, this reference was retracted. And the retraction has been confirmed. The reference doesn't appear to be explicitly cited anywhere in the manuscript body or abstract. It's only cited in the reference list. So anyway, there's a lot of issues with this particular reference in the reference list, and we might want to consider whether or not we want to remove it or maybe replace it with something else, etc. I'm not going to go through each and every detailed report, but you can see here that it really does go into a certain amount of depth, with all the different kind of issues that it flags when it comes to the references. And finally, if you go all the way down to the bottom, you'll see it actually prioritizes what are the reference issues that it thinks are critical, all right, that you really should not be submitting your article until you deal with these, okay, and which ones maybe are more moderate. Maybe it's a matter of preference. Maybe it depends on which kind of what field you're in and what's accepted or not accepted. So it kind of breaks it down, and I would just go in order here and just start with the more critical ones, move along to the high kind of urgency issues, and then finish off with the moderate to low ones. Okay, so this is all under the reference checker, which again, I think it's the first in its field. I've seen other tools that can edit. I've seen other tools that check for plagiarism. I've not seen any other tools that really do a proper, thorough review and check of your reference list. And so credit to the Paperpal team and the product development team who have done that. So just to go over and review quickly, we looked at the grammar checks, all right, and making sure that our editing is up to speed. We looked at the plagiarism checks to make sure that we're not, crossing any thresholds in terms of plagiarism. We looked at the AI detection tool, which will kind of notify me if there's too much AI involved. And then finally, we looked at the reference list, and we analyzed that. And we made sure that everything is good to go. So I think when you look at kind of all these capabilities in one tool, and then you go back and don't forget we've got all these other abilities here to write or to rewrite, research site. Hopefully you're starting to see, and hopefully I've been able to successfully convince you that these are things where try doing any of these things. By the way, I challenge you, try doing any of these things with GPT. You will be sorely disappointed. I can guarantee you. It will give you all sorts of false positives. It will kind of, it may hallucinate, and you're going to run into issues. So I really appreciate the fact that Paperpal is building this tool specifically for researchers and helping them with their specific use cases and needs. And I will also say, to the credit of the Paperpal team, they are continually improving and continually adding and continually kind of making things better and better in a way which is meaningful. All right. So we have now finished up the document health check. And before I give you some time for experimenting yourself, I want to quickly look at the Paperpal chat PDF, which is the last tool that I want to show you today, which is also a tool that I really, really love. I think is quite intuitive and works really well. So very simply, you add any of your sources that you want to add over here in the left-hand corner. By the way, if you're curious how you get here, so if you click on the chat PDF, it's the last button here on the right-hand side of the screen. It will take you to a screen that looks like this. This is with the article already uploaded. So obviously, if you don't have any articles, it will ask you to upload, but your articles will appear here in the left-hand side. So here's my article. This article is an article published in Sage back in 2024 about how cycling, one of my favorite hobbies, what influences it has on people who are experiencing bereavements, people who are experiencing grief, who have lost a loved one, and how riding can be a really powerful tool in helping them. Now, let's say I'm reading through this article, and let's assume that it's not my article. This is an article that I'm reading. I may come across a section which, I don't know, I find it to be a bit confusing. I don't really understand it. Let's say I'm new to statistics. All right. And I can kind of highlight this, the participant section. All right. And I might want to say, summarize this for me. Okay. So just explain to me in like a simpler way, kind of, what am I supposed to understand about the participants? All right, and it's going to be thinking here, and it's going, here we go, and it's going to, here, let me see if I can get rid of this. Here we go. And it's going to give me a really short kind of explanation or summarization, of who the people are. So this is really quite simple. Eligible participants were 18 years of age who had experienced a bereavement. Okay, so that's one way that I can use it, is by highlighting certain sections of the text and asking questions on it. By the way, I can also, there's all sorts of things I can do. I can summarize the text. I can ask it to be explained. I can paraphrase it. I can also trim it down and make it shorter. So there's a lot of the features that we saw before you could do on these articles as well. Now, the other way to use the chat PDF is over here on the right-hand side. You can start asking it questions. So you have two choices. Either it'll give you some suggestions for questions here, or I can write my own kind of questions in the, in the chatbot here. So let me show you how to do both of those. So first of all, what are the main arguments made in the study? If I ask that question, all right, it's going to be thinking here for a minute or two, which is good. I like tools that think, that take their time, that process the information, that come back to me with a high, high trust answer, and not ones that are just quickly responding with some hallucination. So I don't mind that it takes, a few seconds here to load. Here we go. And we've got the summary of the main arguments and claims, right? It talks about the research context and aim, that the paper addresses a significant gap in research, right? No one else has studied cycling on grief outcomes. What the methodology is, the core claims. What I really love here is these citations. Now you may ask, why is it giving me a citation? It only has one article. Well, not only does it give me a citation, it actually brings me to the section within the article that it's taking the summary from. So if I'm concerned or if I'm worried, okay, the summary looks interesting, it looks good, but I'm not sure if I can trust it or not, don't worry. You just click on the citation. And again, the citation is taking you not only to the right article, but the citation, right? This blinking is saying, this is the section within the article, okay, that is going to answer my question in the best way possible. And I'm sorry, I know I'm going a bit quickly today. I just want to show you all the different features. One last way to use this is I can ask my own questions here in the chatbot. So I'm going to ask, what are some suggestions the author has for future research? All right. And again, it's going to be analyzing the article. By the way, if I had many sources here, I could say, what are suggestions across different articles? All right. We're keeping it simple here for today, but it's a very powerful tool that can really help you in a meaningful way. All right, and now I've got the authors recommend looking at incorporating cycling into future grief intervention programs, developing the connection between cycling and grief outcomes, building on the novel findings about how cycling, bereavement, and grief intersect. Okay, so this is pulled from the article, most likely from the discussion section, and it's giving it to me in really easy way to learn here. And I will also say that this is really great because, especially when I have a lot of articles and I quickly need to skim through them and see which ones are going to be most relevant to my research, it can be really helpful there as well. Okay, I have probably gone over my time already, so I apologize, but I would love, Dan, if we have enough time, let me know if we have enough time for everyone to take even just maybe 3 or 4 minutes to pick one of the features. I don't think you're gonna have time to do all of them while we're sitting here together, but definitely encourage you after the session's done, continue experimenting, continue playing around and testing them out. So do we have time for everyone to do 3 or 4 minutes of experimentation, Diane, or are we already too late?
Hi, sorry, I was just trying to unmute. I think we can take maybe 2 minutes, and
Great.
everyone can try it out. I think thanks very much, Avi, for that demo. I think it's very interesting to see how you walked us through the entire Checker suite of features workflow, and it's very interesting to see how you can sort of use each of these checks at different stages of your writing. And I was just thinking back to when we envisioned the document health check workflow on PayPal, and to where it's come and how you displayed it being used. So I think thanks very much for that. Let's take. I would encourage everyone. You can take maybe the next 2 minutes and try it out. Maybe just run a document health check and drop in your comments on the chat. All right, I'm just going to reshare my screen. I just want to also remind everyone that, like I started with, you all have access to PayPal Prime right until tomorrow end of day. So if you haven't already, claimed that, please do that. So you'll see the activation code on the screen, and you should have access to everything that Avi demoed. All right, I'll just
Fantastic.
give you all a minute to do that. All right. We had a lot of questions, Avi, coming in. I'm just trying to put those together into themes. So the team has been helping respond to those. And I think, yeah, just in the interest of time, maybe let's move. Another thing that I'd like to cover and that I mentioned at the start, a little surprise we have for everyone in the session. So over and above the free Prime access that I spoke about earlier, if you want to buy a PayPal Prime subscription, we're also offering you a flat 30% discount for all today's attendees and that's reflective on any Prime plan that you may buy. So you can see the code on your screen, and you can use that for the next 10 days. If you're already a Prime user, you can also choose to upgrade to an annual or a multi-year plan and with a 30% savings. All right. Okay, I hope by now everyone has run a document health check and you may have got at least one or two features scores on that report, at least grammar, plagiarism, AI detection. Reference checks does take a couple minutes, but I hope you've been able to process something. All right, we'll move to Q&A, Avi. We've got some very interesting questions come in. And I think the one that stands out most is on the topic of AI detection and humanizing content. And I'm just going to read out a few different questions and you can maybe respond to them in consolidation. One is, don't you think that paraphrasing too much will lead the document to be flagged as AI written? Is there any way an AI sentence can be revised? If an article is showing a certain AI percentage, how do I reduce that? How do I change it? I'm editing a book chapter where it's showing more than 80% AI content. How do I bring that down? What is generally acceptable? So, Avi, if you can maybe share your thoughts on this.
Yeah, of course. I'm sure that then you and the team at Paperpal probably have more specific details about, exactly the behind the scenes and how things work. But I will say two things. Number one is my recommendation, especially for early career researchers, but I would say also for all researchers, start with a draft, even if it's super rough, even if it's kind of, just bullet points on your own. I find that when you start with the AI, it really limits your creativity and ability to think. It limits your kind of, when you write, you think, right? And if you stop writing, then you stop thinking. And that's where the cognitive surrender that I mentioned at the beginning, that's where that comes in. And that's my fear. So my personal workflow is that I start with writing out, again, it can be very rough. It could just be like, ideas that I'm kind of checking on the page, directions, bullet points. Sometimes I'll take the time to, refine it a little bit. And then if I give that to the AI, then already it's less the AI thought for me. It's I did the thinking. I just maybe I didn't necessarily do all of the what I call the scaffolding, which is all the writing around the AI. And then, of course, it's my job to go over it carefully and make sure that everything is reviewed and is approved. So that's kind of the first thing I would say. In terms of if you already have a text that's being highly kind of flagged as AI text, you may want to go in, and there are some paraphrasing tools out there. In fact, Paperpal itself has a paraphrasing tool. I don't know whether if you use the paraphrasing tool that lowers the AI percentage. Maybe Dan can speak to that. But I think it's important, especially if you're up at around the 80% mark, it really is important for you to go in and be a critical thinker and change things and move things around. As good as AI is, I don't think it can really get to that percentage without, making some errors, some mistakes, some issues. So pretend the advice I would give is pretend like you're the reviewer, right? I know it's weird to be the reviewer of your own work, but I think that's the best way to do it is you think about it and be like, okay, if I was reviewing, if someone would ask me to review this text, what would my critique be? How would I challenge it? And how would I change it? And then once you have those ideas, then you can go ahead and revise accordingly.
Yeah, I agree to what you said, Avi. And I think what's important, and even if you see, you look at the result of any AI detector, including PayPal's AI detector, it's not, I think it's important to read it as it's not a verdict. It's detecting patterns, it's detecting stylistic patterns in your writing. And what PayPal's AI detector will do is it will split this into three parts. What seems fully AI written, what seems like it's a human and AI blend, and what seems fully human written. And that I feel is very useful for some of these use cases, because what's important then if you're looking at a document where you're already seeing a high AI score is look at this split, look at the parts where you're seeing a human AI blend or you're seeing a high AI only detection. And those are the parts you probably want to look at what patterns are being detected. You'll want to revise them, paraphrase them, rewrite them. And it's important, like Avi said, to try and do some of that manually on your own before you even use an AI tool maybe to paraphrase. So yeah, I think thanks for that response, Avi, and I hope that answers many of the questions on AI detection and humanizing that we got in the chat. All right, the next question, Avi, for you is, as an early career researcher working on review writing, I would like to understand how to make a review article more suitable for editorial interest. Could you please guide us on how to prepare an effective
Sorry, I
review?
didn't. As an early career researcher, can you just repeat the rest of that
Yeah,
question?
sure. As an early career researcher working on review writing, I would like to understand how to make a review article more suitable for editorial interest. Could you please guide me on this?
Mm. Interesting. That's a good question. I don't know if this is. I don't know if you're asking specifically when it comes to PaperPal or if you're asking just in general. I think when it comes to a review article, obviously trying to get to what's called saturation, right? Meaning trying to get to as many papers as possible that are relevant to the field and really covering that. I think that's a really important skill as an early career researcher is to try and find as many things as possible. That's another feature of PaperPal that we didn't have a chance to look at today, but obviously the literature search is a very strong component of what you can do. And then it's also a matter of being able to really be able to decipher and between kind of the articles which are critical to your field and those that are not critical to your field, and what are you kind of coming to who is the target audience, right? Who is going to read this review, and what are they interested in? Is it a group of doctors who really need a quick hitting kind of summary of the field that's more recent to understand how they're supposed to be kind of working, or is it a researcher who's going to take the time to kind of go through with a fine-tooth comb? And I think depending on that, that's going to kind of drive your approach to how you write the review article.
All right, great. Thanks for that, Avi. All right. The last question I'll take before we wrap up is so we got a lot of questions on data security, and I'll just read out one of them. Does PayPal capture and record our research paper when we use it for checking the document health of the research paper? So I'll take this one. So let me clarify that any document or text or prompt or anything that you bring onto the PayPal product, none of it is used further for training models, for any sort of training inside, for any sort of training product. We can also just share our data security guidelines that we have. If someone from team could please drop that on the chat. We have a very strict adherence to data security, and we don't use any of your files further. So certain files, certain reports that you may generate are available to you for a time period. That's available only from your account, so no one else can access it. But if at any point you want, these deleted as well, you can write into us, and we'll do that right away. So you can be assured that we follow utmost precaution regarding file and data confidentiality on PayPal. All right. All right. With that, I think we're just about 2 minutes over time, and we can wrap up. Thanks very much, Avi, for taking us through today's webinar. And thanks, everyone, for joining. I hope this was a useful and insightful session. Please log on and use the Prime account that and the discounts that I shared earlier to access everything that Avi shared. And all right, yeah, we can now wrap up. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, if you don't mind, just one last word. I've built a group where people can share a WhatsApp group where people can share kind of experience using the different tools, including Paperpal, and that's a great way for people to say, how do I do this? How do I do that? Does this work? Privacy considerations. So I invite anyone who wants to go ahead and join that group, and then please share your experiences with using Paperpal afterwards, and share some of your hacks and tips for how to do it in the most effective way possible.
All right, great. Thanks so much. Thanks, everyone. Bye bye.